Tonight, the second term begins for the 44th president.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
The inaugural ceremonies and celebrations from Bob Schieffer and Nancy Cordes. Major Garrett on the inaugural address and the challenges ahead.
For now, decisions are upon us, and we cannot afford delay.
Mark Phillips on the terror attack in Algeria. 3 Americans are among the dead. And Byron Pitts with an historic first in the inaugural parade.
We're like the heartbeat of America. We're Native Americans.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening. President Obama sought to turn the page today from the issues of economic crisis and war that dominated his first inaugural address to a new agenda for a second term. He took his theme from the preamble to the Constitution, "We the people," and he said our journey to democracy is not complete. The president called on the nation to unite on climate change, on care for the needy and the sick, and on equal rights, with a special emphasis on gay Americans. Republicans will not like much of what they heard, but at least for one day, Washington was the scene of pomp and pageantry, ceremony and celebration. America. The National Mall was a sea of red, white, and blue as hundreds of thousands of people waved flags and cheered the president. Americans from all over the land. From sea to shining sea. The day began with the first family attending a prayer service at St. John's Church across from the White House, an Inauguration Day tradition. Later, it was off to the Capitol for the inaugural ceremonies.
I, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Vice President Joe Biden was sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Please raise your right hand.
Then, just before noon, Chief Justice John Roberts administered the oath to the president.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
There were no memory slip-ups on the oath as there were last time. This year, the Chief Justice read the oath off a note card.
So help me God.
In his inaugural address, the president said, America's possibilities are limitless.
My fellow Americans, we are made for this moment, and we will seize it so long as we seize it together.
Beyoncé wowed the crowd with her performance of our national anthem.
By the dawn's early light.
Then, as the president left the platform and headed back inside the Capitol, there was a poignant moment. Mr. Obama turned toward the crowd on the mall. I want to take a look one more time, he said. I'll never see this again.
No, I'm not going to move up and see yard.
At lunch in Statuary Hall, members of Congress and the president exchanged toasts. Then the president toasted his wife.
There is controversy about the quality of the president, no controversy about the quality of our current First Lady.
Before leaving the Capitol, the president stopped at a bust of Martin Luther King Jr., whose birth the nation celebrates today. The presidential limousine led the procession from Capitol Hill, stopping along Pennsylvania Avenue so the Obamas could get out and walk part of the way, to the delight of the crowd. The First Lady was wearing a coat and dress by American designer Tom Brown. The Vice President got out of his limo as well and made the day of a young constituent. Back at the White House, the President and the First Family reviewed the inaugural parade with bands, floats, and marchers representing every state in the Union. And this evening, the Obamas are attending 2 inaugural balls. We have a team of CBS News correspondents covering this inauguration. First, Major Garrett at the White House with more about the address and the 4 years ahead. Major?
Scott, President Obama knows the debate over deficit reduction and entitlement programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security is straight ahead. Mr. Obama used today's speech to tell skeptical Republicans that these 3 pillars of the Great Society must remain.
We, the people, still believe that every citizen deserves a basic measure of security and dignity. We must make the hard choices to reduce the cost of health care and the size of our deficit. But we reject the belief that America must choose between caring for the generation that built this country and investing in the generation that will build its future.
For the first time in the nation's 57 inaugural celebrations, the push for gay rights was equated with earlier struggles for women's rights and civil rights.
Our journey is not complete until our gay brothers and sisters are treated like anyone else under the law. For if we are truly created equal, then surely the love we commit to one another must be equal as well.
The president elevated man-made climate change higher than at any time since winning re-election, resurrecting an issue he's barely touched for more than 2 years.
Some may still deny the overwhelming judgment of science, but none can avoid the devastating impact of raging fires and crippling drought and more powerful storms.
With 11 million illegal immigrants in America, Mr. Obama called on Congress to provide a legal path to citizenship.
Our journey is not complete until we find a better way to welcome the striving, hopeful immigrants who still see America as a land of opportunity, until bright young students and engineers are enlisted in our workforce rather than expelled from our country.
Mr. Obama also recalled the Newtown shooting massacre, which caused him to push for gun control and a polarizing fight with Congress he had previously avoided.
Our journey is not complete until all our children, from the streets of Detroit to the hills of Appalachia to the quiet lanes of Newtown, know that they are cared for and cherished and always safe from harm.
There was one line tailored specifically for a Republican audience, a call to reform or eliminate inefficient or irrelevant government programs. Now, that is a common and often ignored presidential refrain, but Scott, unavoidable budget pressures may create new results.
Major, thank you very much. We don't know a correspondent who's covered more inaugurations than Bob Schieffer, our chief Washington correspondent and anchor of Face the Nation. Bob, how do you assess the day?
Well, it was a very unusual inauguration speech, Scott, in that there were no real memorable lines. There was no, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. There was no, ask not what your country can do for you, as Jack Kennedy did. This was more like a State of the Union speech where the president listed his priorities. He did not particularly ask for help. Rather, he said we're all in this together and we won't solve it unless we are together. I think the left will like it a lot. The people on the right not so much. Having said all of that, it was a perfect day. It was a beautiful weather. The crowds were large. They were joyous. And the most important thing, what was supposed to happen according to the Constitution, happened. The person who got the most votes in November took the oath of office as President of the United States. That doesn't always happen in other countries, but it happened again in our country, and that's a very good thing.
Bob, thanks. During our coverage today, Bob broke the news that House Republicans will vote Wednesday to raise the government's borrowing limit for 3 months. That avoids a fight, for now at least, that could have led to America defaulting on its debts. Here's congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes.
The Speaker of the House, who is so frequently at odds with the president, struck a conciliatory tone today.
To you, gentlemen, I say congratulations and Godspeed.
And in a move seen by some as an olive branch, he and House Republicans dropped their demand for deep spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt ceiling, at least for now. It was partly a recognition that multiple showdowns over the debt and spending have hurt the GOP's standing with voters. A CBS News poll released last week found Americans trust the president over congressional Republicans to handle the economy by 15 points. John Thune is a Republican senator from South Dakota.
Was this the Republican Party saying we're going to operate a little differently in a second President Obama term?
Well, I think I do believe it is a recognition of political reality. I mean, I think that we realize the president won the election, and so I think to some degree it was a recognition that for us to have a debate about spending and debt, we've got to have the focus be on a budget and what we're going to do to achieve a balanced budget over time.
And that's why Republicans have attached a caveat to their debt ceiling bill. They want Senate Democrats to do something they haven't done since 2009, pass a budget, putting them on the record about how much they want to spend next year and on what, Scott?
Nancy, thank you. Major Garrett told us a moment ago that the president cited the Newtown tragedy in his inaugural address in calling for new gun control measures. But did the president change any minds today? We asked Elaine Quijano to find out.
South Philadelphia High School is in one of the toughest parts of the city. Every one of Principal Otis Hackney's students must pass through these metal detectors.
So you want to see tighter gun control measures?
Most definitely.
He watched the inauguration with his wife and daughter. Nearly 1,300 people were shot in his city last year.
What would you like to see happen in the president's second term?
I would like to see him continue this fight. So, you know, the time is now. You know, we've seen what happened at, you know, Sandy Hook. You know, in Philadelphia, we averaged more than, you know, one murder per day last year. And if it's not viewed as an epidemic, I don't know what else would be.
Tom Manowitz also watched the president.
He would be willing to take away my liberties from the Second Amendment in a heartbeat if he thought he could get away with it.
Manowitz owns this shooting range in Garland, Texas, a state with 1 million hunters, more than any other.
Everybody wants their children to be safe, but one person's opinion of how to do it is maybe different from another person's opinion of how to do it. When something bad is happening to you, you're the one that's there. If you have the ability to defend yourself and take care of yourself and your family, that's the only recourse you have.
I don't want to take away people's Second Amendment rights. We as a country, do we see a need to do something? Because how far does it need to go before we all back up and say, all right, know what, this is not right?
The Second Amendment was debated by the first Congress here in the city of Philadelphia. And Scott, the current debate over gun control has created a rush at gun shops across the state. Pennsylvania's largest gun show saw record attendance this weekend.
Elaine, thank you very much. We have new information tonight about Americans killed in the terror attack in Algeria. A snowstorm has caused a massive pileup in the Midwest, and one contingent in the inaugural parade caught our eye. Their story when the CBS Evening News continues. We learned today that 3 Americans died in that terrorist attack in Algeria last week. They're identified tonight as Victor Lovelady, Gordon Rowan, and Frederick Butaccio. 7 other Americans survived. All of them were working at a natural gas processing plant in the Sahara Desert when it was overrun by Islamic terrorists. Algerian forces attacked the terrorists in a battle that lasted 4 days. Mark Phillips has the latest.
Algerian forces had moved in for a final assault on the kidnappers, they said, because they'd threatened to blow up the gas plant and execute their remaining hostages. Prime Minister Abdelmalek Salal provided the grim totals. 37 foreigners dead so far, he said, including 3 Americans. Victor Lovelady, a 57-year-old from Nederland, Texas, near Houston, had only been working in the plant for 10 days when the terrorists struck. Erin is his daughter.
We asked him all the time, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe going? If you don't feel safe, you don't have to go. And he goes, oh, I feel so, nothing's happened there in so long. And my friend's been doing it for so long. And said, it's fine, Erin, it's so safe. We have protection.
But there was no protection from the kidnappers' arsenal. They had come ready for a fight, and 29 of them died in it. That didn't stop the release of a video of Mukhtar Belmukhtar, whose self-proclaimed mass brigade carried out the attack. He told Muslims to stay away from Western facilities in North Africa because, he said, more would be attacked. It's become an inhospitable place for people like Alan Wright, a Scotsman now home after escaping from the kidnappers. While hiding in the plant, he'd managed to call his family, but what do you tell them?
I thought, I don't want my last ever words to be in a crackly satellite phone telling a lie, saying that you're okay when you're far from okay.
The ungoverned expanse of the North African desert has become the latest battleground in the war against terrorism, and the tragedy at the Algerian gas plant has become the latest, but likely not the last battle. Mark Phillips, CBS News, London.
One woman fought to keep her immigrant family from being deported. What does she want from the president in his second term? That's next. Today, President Obama called for comprehensive immigration reform, but getting a bill through Congress will be a challenge. We asked Bill Whitaker to show us what's at stake.
We need this president to push as hard as he can for immigration reform this year, because Latinos have cared about immigration, and the elections showed it.
Erica Andiola is a well-known immigrant rights activist in Arizona.
Our families can no longer be separated.
She crossed the border from Mexico with her mother when she was 11 years old.
You crossed the border illegally. What do you say to people who tell you that?
Give us a chance to be in the country, to give back to the country. I think a lot of us have a lot to contribute.
Are you going to be speaking today?
President Obama's deferred deportation program allows those who came illegally as children to work and study in the U.S.
It would definitely be a dream come true if I was to become a citizen.
She recently lived every illegal immigrant's nightmare. Federal agents took her mother and brother from their home to be deported. Andiola jumped into activist mode. She posted this YouTube video.
This needs to stop. We need to do something. We need to stop. We're separating families, and this is real. This is so real.
Word went out on Twitter and Facebook.
Just one organization was able to get 18,000 petitions in like a matter of 12 hours.
She even got members of Congress to call immigration authorities. Her brother and mother were released within 24 hours. Yet Andiola points out a record almost 410,000 undocumented immigrants were deported last year.
This is why we need immigration reform, right? This is why we need a fix.
The comprehensive immigration reform, do you think it's going to happen?
I think it has to happen.
Hispanic political power helped release her mother, helped elect a president, and soon she's convinced will forge a path to citizenship for millions like her. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Phoenix.
It was a beautiful day for Inauguration Day in Washington. Got up to about 47 degrees, but through much of the country, it is a grip of bitter weather. In Ohio, whiteout conditions caused 4 pileups, one involving as many as 85 cars. One person was killed. At least 20 were injured. There were frigid temperatures in the upper Midwest. Factor in the wind chills, and some places felt colder than 20 or 30 degrees below zero. A very special group of veterans marched in the inaugural parade this evening. We'll have their story next. The President's We the People address today was about American diversity and equality. It had special meaning to one of the 60 groups invited to march in the inaugural parade, a team of women with deep roots in this land. Byron Pitts has their story.
They often perform to a sound of pageantry centuries old. They are the first Native American women warrior color guard. All veterans, all proud of their ancestry and the nation they serve. Micheline Bigman is the group's founder. Sergeant Bigman served 22 years in the Army, including 2 tours in Iraq.
We're like the heartbeat of America. We're Native Americans. We're still here, you know. I think we're even stronger now than we were before.
Nearly 5,000 Native American women have served in Iraq and Afghanistan wars. Sergeant Bigman's grandmother served in World War II.
She was small. She was like only 5 feet and maybe 100 pounds, but they said she was one of the meanest ones they had.
Sounds like her granddaughter's not that different.
I know.
Bigman was born and raised on the Crow Reservation in Montana. Unemployment was high. Alcoholism and domestic violence were chronic. So she enlisted at age 21 and went on to become a mechanic supporting a combat battalion.
It was an all-male battalion, and when I showed up, they were really disappointed, and the tension, I could just see it. First of all, I was female, a minority, and then I was Native American. I had to prove myself 3 times as hard sometimes.
And she did. When she retired after 2 decades, she formed the Native American Women Warriors. The group includes all ranks and branches of service. They promote diversity and equality in the military and on reservations.
The Native American Women Warriors
In today's parade, they displayed their badges of military service worn on their native warrior dresses. Dresses worn during a traditional dance for prayer and healing.
I think it's time for us to heal, not only as veterans, but as a nation.
So you want to share some of that beauty and healing power with everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Healing for the warriors, like for the nation they served, each said, is something worth dancing about today, any day. Byron Pitts, CBS News, Washington.
And that's the CBS Evening News for tonight. With thanks to the Jones Day Law Firm for this view of the Capitol and for all of us at CBS News all around the world, I'm Scott Pelley. We'll leave you now with James Taylor's inaugural tribute to the nation. Good night.
America, God shed His grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea.